Welcome to this week's Good Work Show. We are back, your co-hosts. I'm
Hello.
Elaine Armstrong.
I'm Trinice Lyons.
And we have a really good show for you today. So we are bringing back a real good friend of ours.
Yes.
Raphael Holloway. And we're calling him a good friend. I hope he finds us to be good friends of his.
I hope so.
I didn't ask him.
We'll just claim it.
Yeah, but he is the CEO of Gateway Center, so an organization that is here in Atlanta, but they are tackling the issue of homelessness and from a couple of different angles. And so you might have heard of Gateway Center before because they are one of the larger organizations that are working in the space, but you may not know exactly what they do.
Right.
And so he's going to tell us all about it. And give us some insight.
And Nicole mentioned when Back in Our Feet was here, it's one of their starting points
Yes.
for their run.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about it, just mentioning it from that context. So we'll learn actually what they actually do there other than start running at 5 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. And Raphael is in my Leadership Atlanta class. So
Yes,
he's like
so
my
he's your
classmate.
buddy.
He's my buddy. So we'll be really good friends next year. After
So we'll
it's
have
all
Raphael
done.
come back next year, and then
That's
it'll be a
right.
whole different. I just won't even participate. I will go.
Well, no, we're going to
someplace
involve
else.
you in it. Hey, it'll be fun. Just as long as we don't show any video of any of the stuff that we have to.
That you actually
any
have
other
to do.
performances we have to do in there.
Yeah.
And then later on in the show, we're going to have Scott Williford, who is the co-founder of the Table on Delk. And actually, you know what? These two kind of could go, because I'm pretty sure there are some people that Scott and his wife are serving that may be in very similar situations to some of those that Raphael and his team are serving. But the Table on Delk is tackling the issue of sex trafficking and human trafficking, particularly in a couple of areas in hotels on Delk Road. So a little bit a ways from where
Yeah.
the Gateway Center is located, but at the same time, I guarantee there are some similarities in some of those issues. And for the women and men and youth who are being victims are in sex trafficking, if they want to get out, they have to have somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we do plan this sometimes. We put the shows together and it all works.
Yeah.
No, but this whole idea, we've had so many guests on the show over the last few years around this area of the human trafficking that happens here in Atlanta. And it's one of those things where it is hard to wrap my mind around the size and scope of this issue.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you feel like you heard about it. You've had discussions about it, and you think about it in a certain context. And we've talked about it on the show. Right before the Super Bowl, we made a point to, when we were in our other home, we reran some of those episodes in order to make sure that we're bringing that issue to the forefront, because we know that there is an explosion that happens around these large sporting events or these large conventions that happen in town and that kind of stuff. It is really interesting, and I'm really interested, and I'm going to have a lot of questions for Scott about the idea that his work is focused specifically on Delk Road, that there is enough stuff happening
on Delk
Road that a whole organization
Yeah.
can be. So they're not even just talking about, we're going to tackle human trafficking in Metro Atlanta. No, we're just going to focus on these like 3 city blocks, and there's enough to do.
5 days a week, they're
5 days a
working
week. It's
on something.
outrageous. And I kind of feel like I'm on a little bit of a soapbox. This is outrageous.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that's in pseudo like suburban. Yeah, but
And that's-
you think about even rural, out where I live, which I guess is probably called, but
Ex-urban.
ex-urban. So and you don't have probably the network of organizations that are working there, but you might not even know it exists because there aren't streets where people are walking or on, or let alone they're just, so there's not these hangout spots, but it's happening. It's just happening in places that you don't even know.
And that's something too that we'll talk to Scott about. Like because like I in my neighborhood, I live in a suburban area, not too far from where, what are you talking about? And there, and even talking about, with Raphael, it's like, where I live in my neighborhood, I live in the suburbs. There, you don't see homelessness in the way that you would in the more inner parts of the city, but I'm sure things are happening there.
Yep.
And there are signs. What should concerned citizens be looking for? And not in the sense that, oh, I want to call the police and get a whole bunch of people in trouble, but being aware of what's happening in your community and stop this whole idea of not in my backyard, NIMBY, that people don't believe that, or they don't have to care about these issues because you don't think they're happening where you live, or that your kids may not be impacted, or, you know.
Oh, they are. And the thing, remember we had the one organization on that was saying one of the main areas or places that they target beyond schools is at church.
Absolutely. So,
the sex traffickers, church.
And the more you learn about this, the more you are outraged. And then also it's in the news every day. We're seeing these stories that are coming out and we're hearing about these things. And somebody was talking about the other day that these folks focus on a certain type of child, people who don't have networks, people who don't have that there might be some other stuff going on, so they're not telling people what's going on. It's incumbent upon the rest of us to be able to start to recognize some of these signs and what's happening and being aware of what's happening in our community so that we can be of help. Again, not to be like, oh, well, we want to call the cops and get a whole bunch of people in trouble,
right?
Especially people who are being victimized. Like, that's not what we're talking about. But I want to be able to recognize that house over there has a lot of really strange stuff happening in it. And is that something that I might want to keep my eye on to see, like, what's happening
going on over there?
Or if later at some point something happened, you're able to say, well, you know what? Yeah, I can be aware of what's happening. So anyway, I'm gonna get up. I'm just kind of on
kind of passionate about that one. You should go volunteer with Table on Delk.
I know.
It's right in it. They have things like 5 days a week. And the interesting thing about it is it's Scott and his wife and volunteers and a bunch of volunteers.
It's outrageous.
Yes.
I'm just irritated. I'm irritated by this issue because I just really do feel like it's something that it's happening too much for people just to not be aware of. And I'm irritated with myself because I don't feel like I know.
Well, you'll know.
No,
right?
I'll know.
Now you'll know.
Now I know.
When Scott comes at the bottom of the show, we will all know. But before he gets here, we're going to talk to Raphael and talk about the Gateway Center and their partnerships, which I think are really unique. And he's going to dig into that. But then also, they're one of the larger organizations who are doing this. And there are things that the way that they approach it is very interesting because they're giving the people that they serve a choice, which I think is very, it's very client-centered in a way that I think nonprofits are moving there now, but we always haven't been there. We all, there's an issue, let's go out and solve it versus let's go talk to the people and see what their issues are really.
Yeah.
She might be trying to solve for something that isn't really the issue. So putting the people that you are serving first and in the middle of the solution and then letting them help you build it around there. So I think that's a great approach. And I'm glad that he's going to come on the show and talk to us about all of the services that they offer and then talk about how the partners are working with them because
that's the thing.
They're all in one big collective. And I think that's an important piece of the way nonprofits work, but particularly for their mission and their model about how they're delivering the services because they're delivering them in a collective way to make a bigger impact and not doing things that they don't do well. Which is great.
And I think most good nonprofits who've figured it out, who've stayed around, who've lasted, realize that if you stay in your lane and then you build your coalition, that you're able to, one of the things when you start getting mission creep and all of that stuff, that's why at Goodwill we don't do some stuff that folks maybe think we should. We don't. We have a very clear focus, but we have really great partners, and I think that's something that the Gateway Center has figured out. And then also, yes, that whole client focus thing and asking people what they want and letting them be a part of their own solution is great. And, I'm sure it makes for a much more successful outcome. So we should be a good show.
It's the In-N-Out burger of In-N-Out burger of nonprofits.
Wow. Have animal, animal. What is it? Animal style? What is it?
They do have animal style, but that's like But now In-N-Out. But see, In-N-Out burger, they have a burger.
Right.
You could get 2 patties or you can get 1 patty.
But that's all you get.
Or I think you can get 3.
But
I don't think that. No, they don't have chicken as far as I know.
Five Guys. You can get hamburger, you get hot dog.
Yeah,
but it's a really good hamburger and it's a really good hot dog.
And you see where
but it's not as good as a Sam's hot dog.
Well, and I'm sorry, but Five Guys is nowhere on the In-N-Out.
Here's what.
Sorry, like that's just my personal. However,
that's your West Coast prerogative.
All those organizations, you think about it, they're blowing up. Like in the last few years, you've seen Five Guys like everywhere.
I'm obviously going to Five Guys on my way home. Like I kind of want a lettuce wrap cheeseburger.
But so you do one thing well, and you get it, and you don't.
As I talk off camera, yes,
you don't divert off of those. Yeah, you don't divert off of those things, which is So I don't know, but they keep people going. I will tell you that.
But their fries are really good too.
Their fries are really, and you can see them making the fries from the potato though, like in the thing, like you see the potato cut. It's the whole thing. I'm sorry for those of you who live on the East Coast and have never experienced In-N-Out Burger. You have got to go west.
And you have to go to California In-N-Out Burger. Because I think I went to like one in Texas and it was like, I'm like, whatever, it's a hamburger. So I need to go to California and have an In-N-Out Burger. In the meantime, I'm going Five Guys on my way home because now I want a lettuce wrapped cheeseburger.
And a bag of fries, the whole bag.
Yes, because I love
the grease in it.
Yes, I love the whole feeling like you're getting something. Like,
you get a lot of something. Don't eat all the fries. Just get them and give some to your friend.
What I try to do is eat the fries that come in the cup and try not to eat the bag fries.
Okay.
Sometimes at work. Sometimes I eat the bag fries
carb
on the way
overload.
Home.
Yeah.
And then I eat the cup fries with my hamburger.
Anywho, back on with our guests after the break. We are really going to start off with Raphael Holloway, and then we're going to get to Scott later. But join us. You're listening to The Good Work Show.
To learn more about the show and how your company can tell their story, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @GoodWorkShow.
Audience, welcome back to The Good Work Show. We have a really special guest with us. We've got Raphael Holloway, who is the CEO of the Gateway Center. We have had Gateway Center on, it's been over a year since you've been on the show.
Yeah.
But you were calling in, and now we got you live and in person.
Glad to be here.
Yes. So for those few people, because Gateway Center is all over the place. So for those few people who may not know what Gateway Center does, explain to our audience what Gateway Center is all about and what your mission is.
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to thank you all for having me again and the opportunity to share about Gateway. Gateway Center is a homeless service center, and I'm specific about calling it a homeless service center versus a shelter. Mm-hmm. Shelter usually creates a thought of just beds and covering, and it's much more than that. We are an organization that's been providing services to the homeless community of Atlanta since July of 2005. We annually serve about 10,000 individuals, and that's 1,200 in our residential program, where we have 490 beds of housing available. As an organization, what we try to be to community is a starting point, which is where the name Gateway came from. Mm-hmm. So it's that gateway or starting point for individuals that are experiencing homelessness and just want to maybe get basic needs met initially. You can access showers, phone, healthcare services, IDs, birth certificates. And then through that relationship that's built through accessing basic needs, then you can decide if you would like to try to secure additional housing, short-term housing, or quote-unquote shelter beds. And then from that shelter bed, we provide intensive case management that helps with linking people to long-term housing solutions. Mm-hmm. And then we partner with other agencies within the city to provide wraparound supports to our clients.
Wow. That's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So 490 beds makes you probably one of the largest, if not the largest.
Second largest. Atlanta Mission, I believe, has more beds than we do.
Okay, but that's a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And plus. All
yes,
the other.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the history of the organization. So we're 14 years this month.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about, so happy anniversary.
Yeah.
How did it come to be? So how did this, like Elaine said before, everybody knows now about Gateway and all the good work. And well, not everybody, but enough people know about it. So how did this whole thing start?
Well, we have the pleasure of having our history being connected and anchored to a thought and a concern that was initiated by then Mayor Shirley Franklin. At the time, there being a number of homeless service providers in the city, Mayor Franklin recognized that it's very difficult for people experiencing homelessness to access services. So she made a request to United Way. United Way convened a group of individuals to make an assessment. What were the best practices throughout the country that ensured that people could have improved access to services and thus linked to short-term residential beds. And what was discovered in all the different strategies was a model that was this wraparound model, this one-stop shop. And so the team gave the recommendation to Mayor Shirley Franklin. She looked at the city's resources, and at the time, the facility that we're in is the former Atlanta City Detention Center, and it was vacant. So a committee was put together, some documents were drafted, and that launched what is now the Gateway Center. There was a fundraising campaign, obviously, to rehab the building, to try to soften the look of the building because it was a correctional facility, to make it more welcoming and inviting for social services. But that's where we got our start, and I'm really proud and excited to be the offspring of an idea to be innovative and creative, to create something new to support people in need in Atlanta.
Yeah. I think that's a great story, though, taking something that was once vacant and negative, but turning it into something super positive in a way that people want to come and not people where they want to get away from.
Right.
Exactly.
So you mentioned short-term homelessness, but there's also chronic homelessness, and I think we got into this the last time we were talking about it. But give us some insight into what that means for people who may not, kind of be aware. They probably know what it might mean, but they may not know all the ins and outs of it.
So in our population of homelessness in the city of Atlanta, which is about 3,000 individuals through our point-in-time count that have been identified. Some will debate the number, but for the city of Atlanta, that's a close count, and it's a measure that's being used, a way of measuring that is standardized across the country and has proven to be the best way for us to get some general idea of the epidemic here in Atlanta. So from that 3,000, a lot of people are cycling in and out of homelessness. So we may all know someone that had a 30-day stint, 6-month stint, but chronic homelessness are those individuals who have had longer episodes of homelessness. And so anyone that's had 12 months consecutively of homelessness would be considered chronic, but not just 12 months. It has to be 12 months and also with a disability. So oftentimes it's a medical condition, positive HIV status. Those individuals get prioritized as being chronically homeless. Also, you can have 3 different episodes of homelessness within kind of a 2-year period that totals the 1 year, and it could also be defined as being chronically homeless. Why that's done, why delineate?
Yeah.
That's really a HUD definition that is used to help with prioritization, because the goal is to leverage the sometimes limited resources to ensure those most in need are being helped first.
Yeah.
Not that we do not want to help everyone, but if we can address those that are most in need, that we recognize will have the most challenges with self-resolving, then we try to identify and target those for our services.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we might have touched on this a little bit just with the idea of the wraparound services, but I just really want to make it really clear for folks how the work that the Gateway Center is doing differs from, like we talked about, not to diminish anything that any of like the shelters or because that stuff is absolutely necessary. I mean, it's how hot is it outside right now?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be standing out there in that heat. I complained about my air conditioner not working, and I was like, oh, woe is me. I couldn't sleep because it was hot one day. But when you think about that in areas, especially here in Atlanta, it's incredibly hot. It gets incredibly cold. So we don't want to diminish that, but how does the other stuff at the Gateway Center differentiate and make it just different? Not better, but just different.
Oh, we're going to say better. My colleagues, we have friendly competition.
Okay, cool.
But we should all be competing to be the best, and that
Yes,
ensures
that's
that our guests that are served are getting the best type of service from each of us. So what makes us slightly different, I think, again, my colleagues in the space would share, is that Gateway was designed to be a collaborative space from the beginning. So this partnership that we have, which is right now consists of on-site, about 12 additional service agencies come on site, schedule weekly to be at our location, to be part of the fabric of what Gateway is and what we can offer to community. Not that organizations hadn't partnered in the past, but to be a scheduled, ongoing partnership, leveraging resources to ensure that really our missions align to have the same desired impact. It was called a wraparound model initially, but it's really a collective impact model that we're saying that, okay, we're never going to have limits in how much there will be available in funding. But we can do more together, and that's any community.
Yeah,
and what I share with our guests that reside with us or our new team members that join us is that it's really a village approach. The village is always stronger when the village works together. And if we can model that village approach within the organization, the hope is then that we can also demonstrate to others how they can be involved and engaged and become part of that village.
Yeah, that's really cool. So talk to us about what happens when people come to Gateway Center. So, so maybe I'm homeless. I don't, I have children. Or talk to us about that. Is it adults and children? Is it just adults? Is it just men? Is it, there's all these things that, so talk to us when someone comes to you and they say, I need help. What happens and what do they get when they walk through your door?
So the first thing that I would hope for any guest presenting at our facility, the first thing they should get is a sense of being treated with dignity and respect. I think that each of us here could acknowledge that there may have been things at some point in time when you were engaging with someone that you was experiencing homeless on the street, that maybe you could have gave them a little bit more eye contact. You maybe could have just spoken and acknowledged their presence. Doesn't mean that you had to give money, food, or any of those other kind of things. Right. But there's just a level of respect that we give people that are sheltered that sometimes our unsheltered community doesn't receive. So the first thing I hope that they receive is a sense of dignity and respect. Then you have the option of choice. As I mentioned, what we call our client engagement center is an opportunity for people to decide where they want to plug in. So it could just be showers, it could just be phone charge, the other services I mentioned. But for those who are ready for change, you are then referred to our Clear Path program for what is called coordinated entry. And coordinated entry provides you with that initial assessment. We're assessing your needs on if you're chronically homeless or not, what has caused your homelessness, what resources you have, is there a way to self-resolve? And then from there, either linking you with one of the beds that we have at our facility or with our partner organizations in community or other shelters to get you linked into a shelter placement. And so that's pretty much what people can expect. They have choices. And so we want people to feel empowered, but we also want you to still have a choice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a big deal.
That is a big deal,
a lot of folks, if you're in a certain situation, you don't feel like you have choices and options. So on top of giving folks some respect, you're also giving them ways to define for themselves what their path is forward.
Yeah. And I like the opportunity, what you mentioned about Gateway, where there is an opportunity just to come in. If you just want to shower, if you just, because I'm not ready, everybody isn't ready for that. And so I think that's awesome that you have those multiple doors in which you can walk into. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, Raphael. We're going to talk a little bit more, dig into some of those programming, talk to and speak about some of the organizations that you partner with, because they've been guests on our show. But before we do that, for folks who want more information, who might want to either refer somebody over, they want to learn more about the work that you're doing, give us your website address and how they get in contact with you.
Definitely. Our website is www.gatewayctr.org.
Okay. And you're located too?
We're located at 275 Pryor Street. That is South Downtown, right at the corner of Pryor and Memorial Drive.
All right. Well, we're going to come back. Audience, hang with us. You're listening to The Good Work Show.
To learn more about the show and how your company can tell their story, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @Good Work Show.
Audience, welcome back to The Good Work Show. We are sitting here with our good friend Raphael Holloway, who is the CEO of Gateway Center, an organization that is using a partnership, collective impact model to really help address Atlanta's homelessness issue and really giving people a choice. And I think that is really smart on behalf of the Gateway Center, but it definitely speaks to that the human-centered model and what you're doing. You're treating and putting the client first and letting them make a decision about where they want to go. So I think that's really cool. So we've been talking a little bit about what Gateway Center does, how you were formed, some of the programming. But talk to us. You give the people who are coming through your doors in your residents and clients an opportunity to give back. And I think that's really interesting, and pay it forward a little bit. So tell us about your resident intern programs and the ways that you're allowing the folks who are coming to you and receiving services to make that full circle.
So we're really excited about our resident intern program. And actually, we just in the past week have made some adaptations to that program. Okay. And so one of the things in that resident intern program is our guests volunteer on site. And so, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a village. And so we're all responsible for maintaining the village. And you feel a sense of pride when you also feel a sense of ownership, or when you have say, or when you're, cleaning certain areas or monitoring certain areas, then it also models for others. The other piece that we've done with our resident intern program is to really lift it up. So in the past, through this volunteering opportunity, we, through our fundraising, provided the guys with a stipend. More recently, a new partnership with WorkSource Atlanta, the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, we've been able to actually turn it into a true paid internship opportunity.
That's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
So we have lifted it up and transformed what we were providing before into structured learning programs. So, for example, we have a culinary training program where the guys go through 10 weeks with us, but as part of that 10 weeks of classroom time and actual work. And so WorkSource Atlanta has leveraged their funds to actually pay these gentlemen an hourly wage while they're in the training program, which oftentimes was the reason why people wouldn't participate in the training program, because you were doing it for free.
That's right.
So now
we see that a lot too, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we have that opportunity for you to not just get a job, but you can now start building plans towards a career, earn a wage, and it's a competitive wage.
Yeah.
It's for the culinary program, the guys are earning about $11 an hour.
Nice.
We're actually about to start a custodial maintenance training program. Those gentlemen will earn $13 an hour.
Fantastic.
The wage is based on market, and it's about $1 less than market, but it's so that when they get hired, they can move forward.
That's right.
And so we've been able to leverage that relationship to then enhance some of the other private-public partnerships we already had with local hotels, convention centers, as well as restaurants, to create a path that not only will you be trained, earn a wage, but can be placed into employment.
Yeah.
So we're really, really excited about our resident intern program and how it has evolved to better meet the needs of the guests that are in our facility.
See, now you're speaking our Goodwill language.
I know. Like
I thought you both might like that.
Yeah, hearing all these things. So all of these things, and I'm just going to back up something you said before, talking about the partner organizations that come in to provide all the different services. So talk to us a little bit about who these folks are and what kind of resources and stuff that they are bringing to the table, so that when people come to the Gateway Center, they get a good understanding of who they're going to actually interact with and for what.
Okay, so one partner I'll emphasize is Georgia Works. I know Georgia Works has been on the show here, and they have been a partner at our facility for a number of years. And this job training, for example, is also basically our attempt at job readiness. So everyone isn't ready to always go right out to work.
Right.
So a great partnership with Georgia Works is that we can now train people who aren't necessarily ready for job placement, but they are still our job placement provider. So we do the job readiness and some placement, but they're directly job placement. They have leveraged relationships with area businesses to say, hey, we have these gentlemen that have been trained by us and they're ready to be hired, and we will monitor them and basically deal with any or most of your supervisory needs and issues. That's a great opportunity for an employer to say, hey, maybe I wouldn't have given one of these gentlemen a job if they just walked in, but I have this trusted relationship, and I know that if there's any issues, Georgia Works is going to step in and assist us with that partnership. Additional partnership that's very important to us that's been there since day one is our partnership with Mercy Care. Mercy Care offers a federally qualified health clinic on site. So there's not a reason for anyone that is interested or desirous of healthcare services not to be able to be connected. So our case managers that's one of the first steps that we know that we try to connect individuals to, because if people feel better, they perform better, and then that also allows them to be at work, not miss days at work and those kind of things. So I would say Georgia Works, Mercy Care. We have other partnerships that I can name very quickly. First Steps is an employment partner. We have a relationship with Crossroads Ministries to provide IDs and birth certificates. We work with,
and that's a big deal.
That is a huge
That's
deal.
a big, and I think that's something, and I don't want to rush past that, because if you need a job, the first thing that they ask you for is some sort of identification.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about it even within the context of other things. We've talked about folks who need, ID to vote.
Yep.
Or, other things. But that, I think, is a huge,
It's
thing for folks to know that they can.
And then
have
you
that
also
as-
feel like you have something, though.
Yeah, I am somebody.
I am somebody, and I can show you.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so that's a huge partnership. Then also aligned with our wellness efforts is the partnership with Back on My Feet, which is a run club. I think many people are surprised that there's actually a run club of formerly or still currently people who are experiencing homelessness that get together 5 o'clock in the morning. They run together. It builds camaraderie. Also, again, strengthens the village, gives that sense of pride, makes you feel really affirmed. You're part of something. They compete in many of the local 5Ks.
Yeah, they sucked Elaine and I in a couple weeks ago.
We had Nicole on the show, and
Okay.
yes, and we did the treadmill-a-thon.
Okay.
With the Peachtree Road race.
They didn't talk you into the 5 a.m. run group?
No.
They tried.
Yeah.
They tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the partnerships are again what makes us different, as you said earlier. Not that others don't have these partnerships; they really are embedded into how we desire to deliver services, and it's really also an opportunity to say to the community, we're trying to be efficient with the resources that we have.
Right.
Oftentimes, there's duplication.
Yes.
What we try to do is ensure that we're not adding or delivering a service that someone else has historically done better at, and there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. And so we leverage those partnerships, bring those partnerships in, and then we listen to clients. We have a client survey that we administer once a month to all of our guests, and we can hear from our guests what would they like to see as a service, and we build those partnerships that way. Additional one that I would just like to point out is with University for Parents has been providing a fatherhood group for us, and it's really been, again, transformative to the men who have participated in that group, because it really digs in and starts to look at, before you can parent, how were you parented to? What is your experience as being a parent? Because that oftentimes influences your success or your lack of success at being a parent if you haven't really addressed some of those issues. So, again, a wide range of services are available, again, for those who choose and want to participate in them.
Yeah. Cool. So we got about 3 minutes left. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, though, and ask you, because you mentioned the client survey, and I think that's a real interesting part. Again, going back to putting the people that you serve first, and designing the services around what they need and what they say they need. So what's one thing that they've told you in that survey that you're not offering now that you're like, boy, I hear you, and I'd love to add this service, or actually we're going to do it. What's in the pipeline?
So one thing, just to be very honest, what they speak to us often about is, well, one is food. They want more food. The food quality is good, but they want more.
Okay.
So that's always number one. Number two has been something that we honestly can't control, and we try to advocate for, which is affordable housing. So we have a large number of gentlemen in our program, and I'm sorry I didn't mention earlier, on the walk-up services, we service men, women, children, anyone can walk up for services.
Good.
On the residential side, in our beds, we only house men. So we refer women and children out to our partners. But the men that are in our program are getting these jobs, saving revenue from jobs that either we link them to, jobs that they find, and they can't launch to the next level. And it becomes very frustrating. And so their question to us often is, what are we doing to help them find more affordable options? And so we are, or myself and board members and others do participate in a number of the community conversations, task force, and other things to try to address the affordability issue. But I think that there are opportunities to tell our story more. This is a great avenue of doing that, to make people aware that if you have residential properties and maybe you want to make that property available for people transitioning out of homelessness, and they can rent it from you at an affordable rate, then contact Gateway Center. We would be more than happy to discuss how we can leverage that. But that's the biggest need is their desire to move on, but there not being resources in the city limits typically available for them. So quick example, if I'm making $12 to $14 an hour, the rent needs to be about $650 to $800 max.
Yeah.
That's very difficult to find.
Yes.
Absolutely.
In city limits.
Yeah, it's very difficult to find outside city limits
or anywhere.
To today's,
Exactly.
Or
Yes.
accessible to transportation to get
Exactly.
to jobs and all that.
Yeah,
kind
you
of
know,
stuff.
and for people just getting back on their feet, they need to be close to work so that they can get there and create those habits of doing all of that.
Absolutely.
And they probably, again, transportation is going to be a
Adding
big one.
child care issues,
Yes.
getting back to child care facilities in time, and then the
Absolutely.
fees associated with being late and not having transportation. So those are the main things
Yeah.
that we get often is how can Gateway or others help them with accessing more affordable housing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's a song that we need to sing across Atlanta for a lot of different people. So last couple seconds, give us again website address, how people can learn more, how they can support the work that Gateway Center is doing.
Gateway Center is gatewayctr.org. Best way you can assist us is through your time, talent, and treasures. We have a volunteer program with about 6,000 volunteers a year. Your talents, we have skilled volunteer opportunities. So that if you have a specialty that you want to bring, accounting, marketing, graphics, whatever it may be. And then obviously your treasures. And that treasure can also be time or money. But funds help the world go around at
Yes.
Gateway.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Again, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Raphael. And big shout out to everybody who is working at Gateway Center.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're listening to The Good Work Show.
To learn more about the show and how your company can tell their story, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @GoodWorkShow.